Hey y'all, and welcome to the effects lesson. Now, I have a feeling that a few of y'all skipped a few lessons to get here because you were just like, I'm gonna go ahead and learn how to add all the special effects to my video. I don't need all that storytelling foolishness. I'm just gonna pop a few filters on my video, and then I'm gonna post it online, blow up the internet, and I'll just wait for the awards to roll in. If that is you, I just wanna stop you right here and remind you that slapping a bunch of effects on a video is not what makes it good. It's really easy to do that, but it's much harder to tell a good story. Now, that said, adding effects and titles and graphics and animations and transitions, those are really powerful tools to help tell your story and communicate your message. And so that is what we're gonna be covering in the next 4 lessons of this course. Now, these 4 lessons are very interconnected. They're going to build on each other. And so that means that you might finish one of them and have some questions that are going to get answered in the very next lesson. And so just keep that in mind as you're working your way through this course. All right, enough of this intro. Let's get into what you are learning in this first lesson on effects. In this lesson, we are going to cover how to add effects and adjust their settings. I'm going to show you how to use something called masks to isolate exactly where an effect is applied on your video. I'm going to show you some of my favorite effects that you should know about. And lastly, of course, y'all know I'm going to be sharing some efficiency tips. All right, we got lots to cover, so let's get into it. All right, so first up, we need the right panels up here in Premiere. So if you go up to the window menu, then make sure that effects and effect controls are checked here. All right, just like with audio effects, we can also add video effects from this effects panel. So let me add one real fast just to show you. I am going to add this magnify effect, and I'm going to drag it over to this clip here. By the way, another way that I could have added this effect is I could have just dragged it over to the effect controls panel while we've got a clip selected, because remember, this effect controls panel is going to show us all the effects for the clip that we've got selected, and it's where we adjust the settings for those effects. So let's adjust some of the settings for this magnify effect. And I don't really know what these do, but I'm just gonna adjust some numbers here. And okay, we are magnifying all up in my face right now, so this is truly terrifying. But anyway, I do want you to notice that over here, when we added this effect to this clip, now it's got a red line up here. And y'all know that that means the playback might be a little choppy. We might need to go up and render this clip to play it back smoothly. And you'll see that if we delete this effect, then we're back at green, where Premiere's feel much more confident. And so definitely keep that in mind as you're adding effects from this effects panel. Now, you may have noticed that when we click on a clip here and we look at the effect controls panel up here, it's already got stuff in it, even before we've added any effects to that clip. And that is because there are some things like motion and opacity. Those are attributes that every clip just has. And so if we want to control the settings for those, we also control those in effect controls. Now, to show you how to work these, I'm just going to click this clip of this little bunny here, and this clip is about this big, and it's on top of this clip that has a green background and 2 little creatures. All right, so with this bunny clip selected, let's go over to the effect controls panel, and we're going to expand this motion attribute and see what we can adjust here. So first we've got position coordinates, and to explain these, I'm gonna need to bust out some rulers. So I'm gonna go to the view menu, and then I'm gonna check show rulers. And you're gonna see here on these rulers that horizontally, we are going from 0 all the way to 1920 pixels. And half of 1920 is 960. And so that is our horizontal middle point. And so right now, the center of our bunny right here is at the 960th pixel horizontally. And then you'll see that vertically, we are going from 0 to 1080. Half of 1080 is 540, and so the center of our bunny here is at 540 vertically. And so by default, the position coordinates are 960 by 540, and if you want to clip in the center, these are the numbers you want to see. But maybe you don't want your video centered in the screen, then you can just click and drag these amounts here, and now our bunny can go and visit his, I'm gonna say that is a frog. But anyway, you'll also see we have scale here, and we got rotation that work in the same way. Now, if I did not want to mess with these numbers because I'm allergic to math, then I could also just go over here to the program monitor and just double click on our bunny clip. And now I've got this box around our bunny that will let me just move him over to his little lobster friend here. All right, when they're done chilling and our bunny wants to go back to the middle, we can just hold down the command key while we're dragging him, and then he will snap to the center. And we can also hold down the shift key while we're dragging him, and that will lock an axis. So that means he'll only go horizontally or vertically. Okay, now you're also gonna see this little circle with a cross in the middle of it, and this is your clip's anchor point. So just imagine if you tied an anchor to somebody, that person would not be able to go anywhere. And first of all, if you did that, I would be really worried about you, because why would you do that? But this anchor point in Premiere works the same way. So if I put the anchor point over here in this corner, then that corner can't move. It's gonna stay in place when I make any adjustments to this clip. I also want to point out that if you've got a lot of clips that are stacked up in your timeline like this, and you've got elements that are overlapping on screen like we've got here, and let's say I want to select this curvy blob here and I want to move it. Well, if I go up to the program monitor and I double click on this white blob to try to select it, then you'll see Premiere has not selected it. It has instead selected this yellow outer frame. And that's because Premiere is automatically going to default to selecting the clip that's on the highest track when you've got clips that overlap like this. And so what we're gonna do instead is we're going to click on our white curvy blob down here in the timeline. Then we're going to go over to our Effect Controls panel and we're going to click on this motion attribute. And now you'll see we've got that transform box that is around our white curvy blob, and now we can click and move it like we wanted to. All right, lastly under motion we have anti-flicker, and that was for interlace video, which is old school. Nobody has that anymore, so don't even worry about this. All right, our next fixed effect here is opacity, which we can use to make things opaque, aka solid, or transparent, aka see-through. We can also pick a blend mode here, and this is going to tell Premiere how to blend that magic fairy dust clip that's on top with the clip of Miles underneath it. And you can play around with different blend modes and create some really cool effects if you're interested. You can also adjust the opacity of a clip right here on the timeline by using this middle line here. And if you don't see this middle line, then you can go up to this little wrench here and then just make sure that Show Video Keyframes is checked, and that'll get it to show up, and then you can drag it up or down however you want. Another thing you can do is you can grab your pen tool and then you can make two little dots on this line, drag one of them down, and then that will fade the opacity out. Or you could overlap clips like this and use the pen tool to make 4 dots, and then that's going to create this crossfade transition between them. But this method requires me clicking to add 4 little dots, and I don't want to do that. And so if I want to crossfade between 2 clips, then I go over to this effects panel and I search for cross dissolve. This is going to dissolve our first clip into the second, so it's going to create this nice gradual crossfade transition. I could also, of course, adjust the length of this transition, or I could add it to just the beginning of a clip to fade it in, or the end of a clip if I wanted to fade it out. All right, lastly, because this cross dissolve is the default video transition in Premiere, that means that we can quickly add it to a whole bunch of clips by using our shortcut to add default transitions, which is Command D on a Mac or Control D if you're on a Windows computer, and then that's going to make our video look like this. All right, next let's talk about making masks and effects. Let's pretend we're making a documentary exposing this new online course that's been all over YouTube ads, and it is claiming that it is going to teach you how to make 7 figures in 7 days. Now we've got this feeling that something is not adding up here, right? And so we have decided we want to do a video on the sketchiness. And so we have been talking to a lot of people on the inside, and one of those people is named Lucy, and she is spilling all the tea because she got access to these super shady docs because she's this genius hacker, and that's also why she wants to make sure that her face is blurred when we include her in the video. And so we gotta mask her identity like this. But before I show you how to do this, if you're sitting there like, Mary, I don't need to know how to do this, I'm never going to do this for one of my videos, then look, remember, it's not about this specific example. This is just a demo for me to teach you a bunch of clutch skills that you can use in a lot of different ways. All right, so if we want to blur Lucy's face in this clip we've got of her here, first we want to add a blur effect to it. And the best overall blur effect is called Gaussian blur. Why is it called that? Because it is based on a Gaussian function named after the mathematician and scientist Carl Gauss. Shout out to Carl. All right, so let's add this Gaussian blur effect to our clip here, and then we'll go up to Effect Controls, and I'll just increase the blurriness here, and then I'm gonna check this Repeat Edge Pixels box, and that's gonna make the blur go all the way to the edge. Okay, now nobody is going to recognize Lucy or anything else in this image because everything is blurry, but we just want the blur to go on Lucy's face, right? And so to isolate an area, to apply this blur effect, we have these shape tools over here. So if I go over to this ellipse here, you'll see that it says create ellipse mask. And so I'll click that, and now we've got this ellipse shape on our video that we can click and move around, and you'll see that this blur effect is only being applied inside this shape or inside this mask. Now I'm just gonna adjust the size and the shape of this mask to fit Lucy's face. Now, I could also go over here and I could click inverted, and no, that ain't right. We're gonna undo that real fast. All right, I could also click this ellipse again to make two masks, and I can select each one over here in the effect controls panel, and then I can go over to the program monitor to edit it on my video. Okay, now that I've got two masks, I don't want to mix these things up, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to right click this first mask on Lucy's face, and I'll name this face, and I can rename the second one on our books to books, and that way I won't get confused. I can also go up here and rename an actual effect. So let's call this blur face. So I know exactly what this Gaussian blur effect is doing on our image here, because maybe I want to add another Gaussian blur effect to this video and give it different settings this time, because maybe I want for some reason to slightly blur everything on this video. Then I could do that, and I could rename this second effect, blur everything, and so on. So there are lots of ways to keep things organized in the effect controls panel. Anyway, let's get back to blurring Lucy's face. We don't want this second blur effect, so let's delete that. And now our mask here is in the right spot. It's on her face, but the edge here is so obvious, and I want this mask to have a soft edge, like how the edge of a feather looks soft. And so if I drag this little circle of our mask here, that controls how feathered the edge of this mask is. And so in the area between these dotted lines, our blur effect is going to gradually blend out. And now because we feathered this, the edges of her face are now not blurry enough, and Lucy is very worried that somebody is going to recognize her. So let me click this square here, and that's going to let me expand or contract the mask path so that I don't have to create it all over again. So just to show you on a simpler example, when I drag this little circle here, that's going to adjust how feathered the edges of this mask are, or how gradually this effect fades out. When I drag this little square here, that's going to adjust the mask path, or how big the mask is. And I can also move this little filled in circle at the bottom here to adjust where this handle is in case it's in an inconvenient spot. But anyway, back to Lucy here. Now her face is blurred, her identity is masked, and she can spill all the tea on 7 Figures in 7 Days, and we have helped save the internet from this scam because we knew how to do masking in Premiere. All right, besides adding masks that are just ellipses or rectangles, we can use this pen here to make weird shaped masks. Now, if you are already familiar with how to use the pen tool from other Adobe or design apps, then you might want to bounce to the next section, which you can find at this time code, but otherwise stick around. All right, so we're going to click this pen here to make a weird shaped mask, and I'm just going to click to make points here. You don't have to drag your mouse, and then when you get to the end and you're ready to close your shape, you're going to see this little circle by the pen tool. After you've done that, you can still add additional points by just clicking on the mask path, and then you can move that point around wherever you want. Now, we have created a very spiky situation here. So this is giving me sea urchin vibes, I'm getting hedgehog vibes, I'm getting, don't know what you are. Anyway, what if we don't want to draw a spiky shape here? We want to draw a round, bubbly shape. Well, we can add curves to our mask path, but not just any curves. We're going to add Bezier curves. And if you're like, I don't know what she just said, then let me explain. A Bezier curve is a parametric curve. So that's like a mathy curve, right? And it has this nice gradual curve. And that's because a Bezier curve follows this math equation. And we can use this formula to scale this curve infinitely. So no matter how big we make it, it's never going to be pixelated. Bezier curves are named after Pierre Bezier, who used them to design curvy cars like this at Renault, and they're also used in fonts and across different Adobe apps. So now that you have had a nice history lesson here, let's add some Bezier curves to this shape. So to do that, first we're going to press the Alt key, and then we're going to hover our mouse over one of these points, and then our cursor is going to turn into this upside down looking V thing. And so we're going to click after we see that, and when we release our mouse, now we have two handles that we can adjust to shape the curves of our mask. We can also just start out by drawing a curvy shape by clicking and dragging our mouse every time we make a new point, and that's going to let us shape the curve. And then if we want to remove a point, we can click it while holding down the Command key on a Mac or Control on Windows. All right, now we're going to say bye to our friend Pierre Bezier. We're going to circle back to him later because he's going to be helping us with animation, but for now, I want to show you some other ways that you can use effect masks. So before we used a mask to blur Lucy's face, but you can use effect masks in all sorts of ways. So let me show you some examples. Let's say that I wanted to darken the background of this shot. So first, let me search for an effect to do that. So I'm going to search for brightness and contrast here. And now another way that you can add an effect to a clip is just by double clicking it here in the effects panel. Now let's go to the effect controls panel. And first I'm going to rename this brightness and contrast effect. And now I'm going to click the pen here to just mask out the background. And that looks good. And now I'll add a giant feather and let's adjust the mask path a little bit. And now let's finally lower the brightness on our background, and I am popping in this image now. And if I click this FX button, we can see the before and the after. All right, let's say I'm not done here though. I also want to add some blue to this background because remember, our faces are warm, and when you put that against a blue background, they stand out. So let's search for an effect to do that. I'm going to search for the color balance effect, and I'll add that to our clip. And let's rename that Add Blue to Background. Okay, and now I'm just gonna jack this blue up here, and you'll see that that has increased the blue on our whole image, including on my face and skin. So I don't want this effect going on me, I want it just on the background. And that means I want to add another background mask to this color balance effect, but I don't want to redraw that thing because that was a lot of work. And so instead, I am just going to copy this mask that we already made, and then I'm going to select this new effect and I'm going to paste the mask. And that was so much faster. And lastly, I'm just going to feather this mask a little bit more so it's not so obvious. And now we can check our work with this effects button by looking at the before and the after. I also often use masks on the opacity effect if I want to remove something from a visual. So if I wanted to make the screenshot a lot simpler, then I could just add a mask to the opacity effect and mask out all this messiness that I don't want. And now it's looking a lot cleaner than before. I also want you to notice that the order of effects matters. So let's add a drop shadow effect to this. And now we'll just adjust this a little bit. And now let's add a crop effect because let's say we just want to show this part of the keyboard. So now you'll see that we are cropping the drop shadow out, and that looks really weird. But if I make sure the drop shadow is applied after the crop, then things look way better. All right, now you saw earlier that you can toggle an effect on or off for a clip by clicking this little FX button beside it in the effect controls panel, right? But you can also go over to your program monitor and you can add a button called Global FX Mute. And this is going to turn on or off all of the effects on all of the clips on your timeline.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
All right, y'all, that means we've reached our first triple P, and so make sure you pause now and practice these tasks if you haven't already. First, I want you to make sure you know how to adjust a clip's motion. So make sure you know how to edit the position, the scale, the rotation, and that you understand how that anchor point works. And remember, you can do this by changing the values in the effect controls panel, or you can just double click on the clip in the program monitor. Next, I want you to add a curvy opacity mask to a clip. So remember, you're going to use that little pin under the opacity effect in effect controls. Then you're going to just click and drag in the program monitor to draw a curvy mask, and you can adjust those curves using the Bezier handles. Then I want you to feather and expand that mask and make sure you know how to right click and rename that mask. And then finally, try out pressing those FX buttons, both in the effect controls panel by each effect individually and that global effects mute button in the program monitor. Once you're done with these tasks, then come back here and I will see you for the next video.